And now, more Utalk. Now.
Hey guys, we have got an awesome show today. You are going to love it. Something you can only have a chance to experience here on Utalk. I'm stoked totally about our special show today. This actually is our first international show, if you can believe it. I mean, you can see it everywhere, but I mean, our first international guest, I guess. He has been, well, I'll tell you a little bit more about him in a minute, but I've been part of the Sabian Cymbal family for a long time, and it's a real privilege. Without a doubt, they are the best. They are the most innovative cymbals on the planet. I guess that's why I use them. They've led the market for many years on new cymbal design. And in just a moment, we are going to go behind the scenes at the Sabian factory in Meductic, New Brunswick, Canada. International. We don't think of Canada as international, but they are. We're going to go with a buddy of mine who has spent most of his working life at Sabian. Yeah, can you believe that? We're going to talk a little bit about that because that's very unusual today, but there's other people at the factory the same way. But he is currently the director of research and development for Sabian. And he's the coolest guy. Usually we see each other once a year at the NAMM show, but it didn't happen this year, so this is our catch-up time. And here he is, Mark Love.
Hey, Steve. How are you?
I'm great, man. How are you?
I'm great. Great to see you.
Thank you for taking time to be with us. This is, I'm just absolutely amazed, even when we were testing this morning, just to see, make sure all the tech stuff was working. And I appreciate you taking time. I've been wanting to do this for quite a while. First question, just kind of random. Is there a favorite cymbal that you've been involved in designing? Or is that just like too many? It's like, okay, how many hours do we have, Steve?
I was actually asked that question yesterday.
Okay.
And my answer was the last one we created, basically. Because we put a lot of effort into the creation of a lot of products. And just recently we introduced, actually Tuesday, this week, we introduced the HHX Anthology.
Oh, I was reading about that.
And it's, in collaboration with Jojo Mayer, one of the world's best drummers.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, picking your favorite cymbal, doing what we do is like picking your favorite child. Like, you can't do it. It's
I love it. Oh, now you mentioned JoJo. Mark, what is it like to work with like these super class drummers, in creating new things? Now, what makes JoJo's line different than others?
Well, first of all, JoJo, he's a very innovative player and an innovative thinker, and he's always thinking outside the lines, if you will. A lot of drummers will come in with an idea, but they have no idea how to accomplish that. Mm-hmm. But JoJo thinks much deeper than that, and he's thinking about, we've worked with JoJo for over 20 years on the Omni, on the Fierce, on the Hoop Crasher, on many different projects. So he knows the inner workings of Sabian. So he knows what lathing does, what hammering does, and he's much easier to work with than your typical drummer that comes in and maybe doesn't have the knowledge of that. But it doesn't matter if you're just a guy off the street that's a drummer that wants to get a custom cymbal built, or if you're Chad Smith or JoJo Mayer, we treat you the same when you come in. And, every drummer is important to us. Some have better ideas and or more ideas and are more in depth, but, we treat everybody the same. So it's, and a lot of ideas actually come from, people that aren't well known.
Interesting.
Maybe it's just a simple idea, but it's a piece of the puzzle that later on we put together and we come up with something very unique and interesting.
Yeah, one of these days I want to get with you and design something because it's I've got a couple ideas, but I'm not there yet. But I go back to what you were just saying, the way you treat everybody. I remember the first time I was there in Meductic, I was actually in the area to do school assemblies, and the committee that brought me in said, hey, we're going to go to Sabian and we're going to get a drum set for you. And at that point in time, I had not been playing using Sabian cymbals and immediately fell in love with them. There's something about them. There's a richness. There's a uniqueness. They're just an amazing cymbal. So props to you guys for what you've done all these years. Yeah. Okay, research and development. What is that? What do you do?
Basically, my job is to create new product, to create new ideas and new and interesting cymbals, something that we already don't have. And at the same time, we have the responsibility of overseeing the quality. So any given day, we're on the floor working with the latheman, the hammer, making sure the things that we've already designed stay consistent and stay the way they're supposed to. So that's job number one. And then doing that, also, we're working with artists and just coming up with ideas, things that we try to stay ahead of the trends as much as we can, although that's very hard to do because trends are always moving and shifting, and, it's a tough one. Now, we think with Anthology, that's one cymbal that we kind of got ahead of the trend. The sounds are moving back more towards traditional. The last number of years, it's been dry and raw and dark, and we feel the shift a little bit. Still, those cymbals are relevant, but we feel that the trend is moving a little bit back to more traditional sounding cymbals.
That has to be challenging, trying to stay ahead of the trend and yet producing a solid quality. And I get this is, I think I already know the answer to this, partly what I'm going to ask, but to develop a new cymbal, each one takes a different length of time. It's not like saying, we can develop one in a month. It might be a month, it might be 6 months. Is that correct?
Yeah,
it's all
absolutely.
Different?
I mean, this latest project with JoJo is 2 years, and through COVID, there was no visitation. So everything was done through video. Like we'd talk and we'd get a plan and we'd make some prototypes, and then I'd video them, send them to him. He's in Switzerland. And then when we thought we were close, we'd send him a batch, and then we would get together again and review and then tweak it and do it again. And so, almost 2 years into this before we, finally ended up where we wanted to be. So it's a lot back and forth and a lot of R&D, a lot of inventory building that you're learning all the time. A small change means a big thing. These cymbals are very labor extensive. Like they're hammered twice, they're lathed twice. They're much different than most cymbals we make. So, it seems like to get new and innovative sounds, you have to go deeper and put more effort into it now to come up with something that's very unique.
But it's great that you guys do that. You're willing to go deeper to create that sound, that unique sound, that innovative sound. And as a player, as a drummer, again, that's what I appreciate about Sabian. There's nothing like a Sabian. Somebody just said that process shows that massive respect for what you guys are doing. So
we feel we make great instruments, but every cymbal company says that. So
yeah. But I have to say, I've played others, in the past, and there really is something unique about Sabian. It's not an average sound. So I'm going to have to check out the new line. I haven't had a chance. I saw it on the website, which, by the way, those of you who want to check that out, I believe it's Sabian.com. Am I correct?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
And there's just so
We've actually redesigned our website recently, so it's got a bit of a new look, and it's very well
nice.
Good.
Yeah, I thought something looked different when I was on yesterday, just checking some things out. And there's a lot of resources. And even for those of you that are not drummers, first of all, we're sorry, everybody can't be a drummer. No, but if you're not a drummer, there's interviews on there with different drummers. And it's a cool site. And as a drummer, you're going to love that site. So check it out, Sabian.com, and you can always see all the new things that are happening. You are going to take us on a tour.
Yes.
And one of the places you're going to take us, I believe, is Area 51. Okay, now what is Area 51? I mean, we know the other Area 51.
Yeah. In our old factory, I'm not sure when you were here last if it was the new factory or the old factory, but in the old factory, we had a little room in the back, and we used to put all our cymbals that didn't quite fit our lineup at that time or things we were working on for R&D. In this little back corner. And Andy Zildjian came in one day and he took a Sharpie, and over the door he wrote Area 51. and ever since that's what it was called. So when we built the new factory, we actually built a room. We're in Area 51 right now, by the way, but Randy will show you this.
That's very cool. Actually, you know what? Thinking through things, I never never made it to the old factory. My days as part of the Sabian family have been with the new factory. So, but so this is the catch-all room in a sense, and
this is a room that we put all our specialty cymbals in. I mean, we do a custom shop program, which has been suspended through COVID. We hope to open that up again this year, where you can go online and build your own cymbal. The size, the type, the belts, the hammering, and a lot of that product. Maybe if somebody orders one, we may make 2 or 3. and the extras all end up in here. And then anything we think of, if we think of it, Randy and I, we try it. So we're, that's how you learn. So.
Oh, that's cool. Do you ever find yourself waking up in the middle of the night going, I've got this idea for a new cymbal sound?
All the time.
How do you capture that idea? Do you put it in your phone or your tablet or?
Well, we joked here a little while ago, and we said we need a notepad beside the bed because when you wake up, you need to write it down because it may be gone in the morning. But
no, absolutely. I get ideas like that, and I've got my phone right there, but I think I'm just going to get a regular, standard notepad just because I can scribble something real quick and I don't have to turn the screen on and all that.
This is kind of a backdrop we have, and a lot of these cymbals you see on this wall are one of a kind, just things we've been playing around with. If you look at this cymbal, this was an ambient ride that we did for Will Calhoun, but we've applied these deep pockets of hammering.
Interesting.
Change the acoustics. Or this cymbal we call the shredder, which hasn't come to market yet, but it's got these notches on the edge. So it affects the sound because the sound reaches the edge at different intervals, so it turns it into more of an effect.
Oh, that's cool.
And then we've got our Complex, which is a very popular series, the HHX Complex. Just recently, Randy and I have been finding out that the aero design on these make a tremendous effect, much different than our AAX. So there's a lot of cool cymbals here and ideas. We've got what we call that, Randy? The Complextagon. Remember we did for the Rocktagon many years ago. And just little things like jingles that sit on a cymbal. When we punch the holes, you can do something with the holes to add an effect.
Nice.
And then graphic cymbals. We've been into graphics. You can see on the walls here we have many different designs, and we're still R&Ding that. People are into the cosmetics of a cymbal as much as the sound sometimes. Many different designs. The music signs on that one, and just different colors, and there's no end to what you can do.
Interesting. So an individual can contact you and say, I'd like to try to have this cymbal made, give you some specs or whatever, give you some ideas, and then you'll tackle it.
And once our custom shop opens up, but before that, if somebody wants a special cymbal, every cymbal in this room is for sale basically through our check program. You can go on and tell us the type of cymbal, ride, crash, effects, hi-hat, and a description, and then I'll come in here, or Randy and I will pick that cymbal and we'll send them to you. And you get 2 weeks to try them out. If you like them, you keep them. If you don't, you send them back. So, that's a good program, and you have access to this room through that.
Question, Mark, that we've got from somebody who says, does every prototype we buy pass through Area 51? Your prototypes are awesome.
Yes, they would. They would go through Randy and I. We would look after the building of these prototypes. So everyone would come into this room and be part of this and, follow the same process as everything else, but it's printed much differently. It's printed as either Sabian Custom Shop or Sabian Sound Check. But it's, it takes a different route from our normal production.
Interesting. See, I did not realize that those cymbals were for sale. Something new for me. I got to tell you, this is getting dangerous for me, Mark, because I haven't gotten any new cymbals for quite a while, like pre-COVID. So I'm starting to salivate. So I'm going to try to get myself under control so we continue to talk about this.
We hear that a lot from many drummers. Now, Steve, if you'd like, I'd walk you through kind of the process of cymbal making.
Yes, that would be awesome.
Now, we've got 2 alloys, and most of our cymbals are made out of 80-20, which is 80% copper, 20% tin. And we have a foundry where we melt that at 700 pounds at a time.
Oh.
And it's a family secret how they mix it. There's only certain people that are sworn to secrecy that are allowed to even be in the room. And they mix the metal, pour it into castings. We call them castings, but into ingots. And we make them different sizes depending on the size of cymbal that we're trying to create. So they pour them into these, and then these would go into our big ovens. We have big ovens about 15 feet square that run at 1,380 degrees Fahrenheit. And we heat these up red hot, and then we pass them through a rolling mill and then back into the oven. And each time through the rolling mill, they get a little thinner and longer. And each time through, we turn them 90 degrees. So we want to create a round blank. If you went in the same direction each time, you would just get elongated blank.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
You go in a different direction each time, and that interweaves the grains of the metal and also adds strength to the product also. So that would go through anywhere from 7 to 12 or 13 times, depending on the product. And the thickness, like we roll them to an exact thousandth of an inch, depending on the model of cymbal we're trying to create. So when it's finished being rolled, this is a small one, but you get a blank that looks like this.
Okay.
And it's dark because the tin oxide melts at a lower temperature than the copper. So they're black at this stage. So at this stage, this is like glass. If I threw that on the floor, it would probably crack and shatter.
Whoa.
Yeah, so the next step is pressing the bell into them. So back into the oven they go and heat them up red hot, and then we stamp the bell in. Now each model of cymbal will have its own unique size bell. So it presses the bell in, and it also puts a little tiny hole in the center at the same time. So when we drill the hole, it's exactly centered. So the next step after the cupping is the tempering. So they would put them in another oven and heat them up red hot, and then they throw them into a cold water bath, and that quenches or anneals the metal. So now everything that's done after that is done cold. Up until that point, everything is done hot. So now it's softer, it softens the metal, and now you can manipulate it. You can hammer it, you can press it, you can whatever you want to do. You can do it without risk of cracking.
And when it's at this point in the process, then when you hammer it or press it or whatever, you're not ruining the form of it. You're just enhancing it and developing the sound.
Yeah, exactly. Now this particular blank is a hand hammer blank, so we go through a bumping process where they flatten it out perfectly flat, and then as they hammer it, you can see one here that they've hammered. Every time they hit it, it raises the metal. So they hammer that consistently until they build a profile exactly to what that model requires. So the more you hammer it, the more that rises and raises the profile and raises the pitch.
Now, with the profile, is that something that's measured, or is that like you're eyeballing it kind of a thing?
Well, both.
No, both.
Eyeball it, but they also have a guide, a template, and for every cymbal we have a master cymbal that we try to emulate. So they have that in their hands also, and they're comparing all the time. And especially when it's a hand hammered cymbal, there's like 5 guys, and they all hit a little bit differently. So even though they're striving to achieve exactly the same cymbal, they vary a little bit just because of the different techniques. Some may hit harder than others, and just variations. But overall,
so really, each cymbal is unique, even though it's it could be part of a series. There's still a uniqueness to each one.
Yeah, they're like fingerprints or snowflakes. Everyone's a little bit different, but they're still within a certain parameter of sound. And then the lathing is the next step. Now this is a complex one. It has the raw bell, but it's hand hammered, and then we apply another hammering, the HHX hammering, over the top of that. And then also I want to mention that these are shavings that you cut off at the lathe. So when you're lathing that, you're removing shavings like this. And we remelt all that. These are B20 shavings, so they're very hard. They'll just disintegrate in your hands, like they're. Plus, when we circle the blanks, the outside edges are all cut up, and we remelt that. So there's no waste. Metal's expensive, and we save everything and remelt it and reuse it.
That's amazing, because that people are so conscious about recycling, the climate, all that kind of stuff. I'm glad you reminded me about that, because I remember being in the factory and in conversations you and I have had before. Now, when you take shavings or pieces off a particular cymbal, do you melt them and use them for the same kind of cymbal again, or can you just use them for anything?
Yeah, no, it would be whatever cymbal we need at that time. I mean, every day the melting room would have a wish list. We need, 5-pound castings or 6 1/4, whatever the weight may be, and that's their target. Now they pour these by hand, so it's not exactly precise. They're very good at it, but there's a certain amount that goes back in that we don't need that weight. Mm-hmm. We've got enough inventory of that certain casting, so we remelt those the next day, and we just keep a cycle going. We don't want any more of that than we can help, but
sure.
I mean, you could have it doesn't matter which cymbal, it's the same alloy. So anything from an XSR, which is our entry level cast, all the way up to an artisan would come out of that same batch of metal. Just how you manufacture it after that creates the different sounds.
Oh, now we've got a question here. It says, Is the SR2 series still in production? And if so, will we see the complex series be adapted?
Yeah, the SR2 was suspended when COVID started, and we haven't set that back up yet. Now, that was a refurbished program also, where we took return cymbals from trade shows and artist returns, and we reworked them in a specific way that made them very unique, and then we sold them at a reduced price. Just rather than melting them down, there was still a lot of value there.
All right.
So that hasn't started up, and there's no plans to start it up right away, but hopefully in the future we are able to.
That's another innovative touch, taking these cymbals and saying they still have value and reworking them. For example, how would you rework a particular cymbal? Would one that's not hand hammered be hammered a little or lathed? No
hammering. No, we have a special etching that we do to the surface, and then we line over it with a lathe that makes it a very unique appearance. And but it could be an artisan, or it could be an AAX or an HHX. It's kind of like a treasure hunt when you went into a store and look at SR2, you don't know. And we made it very simple. It's by size and thickness. It's either thin, medium, or heavy, or whatever size, anywhere from 8-inch to 22-inch. So it was very, we didn't tell you it's a ride or crash or whatever. It's just the thickness and whatever fit your need. And it was for you to determine that.
That's awesome. Again, the innovation just amazes me. And I feel like I'm back. Well, I am at the factory, but back in that original tour, because I think I was having like mental overload because I was trying to take in all of this. And this is I think a lot different than what most people would realize. It's not just grabbing a piece of metal, cutting a hole in it, making a bell or whatever. Let me go back to a question we have here. Why are they returned to be fixed?
They're not returned to be fixed necessarily, but if a drummer has been using them for a while and he wants to switch to other models, we would get those back as a credit. Or if they're at a trade show, then they're played on and they're not considered new. So they would just come back. They're not fixed necessarily, but we have ways that we can rebuff a cymbal or clean it up, and it's still a new cymbal basically, but we don't sell them. Occasionally somebody will buy our booth, the cymbals on a booth at a trade show, but not always. Sometimes they come back and we have to refurbish them. A lot of times it's band and orchestra, marching bands. They use them for a season and they get pretty beat up. And then we get them back and maybe we edge them to a different size, take the nicks out, and we put that SR2 finish on them, and they're still great cymbals.
Oh yeah, no. It's now and going back to, I think if I heard you right, you said that those are sold at a reduced price.
Yeah, and it's a low end cast price. I don't know if they're a little less or around like XSR pricing, but
okay.
Don't hold me.
Somebody's got another question. I can't see the first part of the sentence, but it says that is thin, dry, and unlathed. That is similar to Zildjian's K Dark Dry. We need this.
Okay. Yeah, we've got a lot of cymbals here that are raw. I can step over here and kind of show you. This cymbal here is totally raw on the top side.
Yeah.
And lathed on the bottom. It was like the Phoenix, the Big and Ugly that we did the program a few years ago, where we had a collection of raw cymbals. And of them here. I don't know how that sounds.
Oh, that's cool. Cool sound.
We've got a lot of different cymbals like that, and then here's one here that's totally raw, and it's got the oven, the brickwork on the bottom where it was in the oven, and it's quite thin.
Oh yeah. Now somebody just made a comment about more trashy. Can you create more trashy crashes?
Oh, absolutely, and we have many of them. But actually, those complex arrows that I showed are very trashy. And depending on what you mean by trashy, too. Like,
yeah.
I don't know how this sounds through that mic.
Nice.
Typically, when you think of trashy, you think of a Chinese type cymbal.
Right.
And then we have, this is something new we're working on. It's a different hammer peen. 22-inch, but
oh, nice.
that could be considered kind of trashy too.
Yeah, yeah. Now that's one thing I don't have, so I'll have to put that on my list. Is I don't have a trashy crash. Now let me jump in for a second here, because something you and I talked about just briefly when we were testing. At one point, I don't know if you're still doing it, but you created some cymbals that were actually buried in the ground. They were, I think, called dirty cymbals. Is that correct? For a period of time?
Well, they were. It was a program we called 1 of 100, and the backstory on it. Well, a lot of drummers over the years would take their cymbals and they would bury them in their backyard or garden, and they said that it would change the sound. They would bury them there, leave them for whatever length of time. So no major cymbal company had ever done that. So we said, hey, let's try it. So we made a 21-inch artisan cymbal, and we built this special crate that was like 5 feet square, and it had holes all through it, and the Sabian logo cut out of this steel. And we filled that with this 100 cymbals all on their edge and put dirt in, and we buried it on my farm just up the road from here. And we buried it like 5 feet under the surface, and we left it there for 8 months. And then we dug them up and we brought them back, and it was kind of a marketing thing. No one had ever done it. And we sold them in these wooden boxes with like the shavings and the straw in them. And we sold those, that way. And, people say, well, what did it do to the sound?
Yeah, that was my question.
I use the analogy, if a jazz drummer has the same ride cymbal and he uses it for 20 or 30 years in a club, and it's got exposed to fingerprints and smoke and things spilled on it, and it fills those tonal grooves and dries it out, and it just becomes much different than it was when it was new. And I use that analogy to describe how these sounded, because they were covered in dirt and the water that would have ran through them.
Right.
And it did, and we didn't clean them up a lot. We got the dirt off them, of course, but we kind of left them natural as far as the way they looked.
Mm-hmm.
And we sold them that way, just because nobody else had done it. But it was more marketing. Because I say that because anyone that bought one, we invited them to come visit the factory afterwards. And when they were here, they had their choice of any cymbal free. So they got 2 cymbals for the price of one, even though they paid more for the initial one. But no, it was just something that nobody done, a major cymbal company, and we said, well, hey, let's do it. And so it was something unique for sure.
Yeah, definitely. What and the sound, was there any particular characteristic of that sound?
I'd say just a little drier, a little more subdued, which in a ride cymbal isn't a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, more just that. It kind of aged them a bit. And most drummers know that time really enhances how cymbals sound.
Absolutely.
Yeah, whatever is there gets enhanced over time because the metal is hardening all the time. And we see that when we're testing cymbals. When they're really fresh, they don't quite sound the way they're going to in even one day. It's a big change. But it keeps changing over time. Whatever's there is enhanced. Now, that doesn't mean a bad cymbal gets good. That means
for sure.
But if it's good, it gets really good over time. But if it's bad, sometimes those bad qualities, or what we perceive as bad qualities, are enhanced over time also.
Yeah. Now, I'm just sitting here, the curious mind, who was the first, what would motivate a drummer to say, I think I'm going to bury a cymbal in my, the back of my farm and just see what happens?
Yeah, well, I don't know. There's stories out there of doing a lot more than just burying them to cymbals to see how it affects the sound. But and we see that, people try things at home. We've had quite a few people try to hand hammer a cymbal at home. And that doesn't always work out well, but or just different things. And
yeah.
But it's people are creative, and it's great to be creative.
It is. No, it really is. Now, we have another question. Let me jump in with that. It says, will there be more product other than the anthology this year? New product, I'm assuming.
We're working on a few things. We have something planned for our 40th anniversary. This is our 40th year, so we're looking at a cymbal for that. And we've got a few little effects that we're looking at launching periodically throughout the year. And then we've also got, this isn't for 100% for sure, but a Black Friday cymbal that we're working on for later in the year, just something unique, like a concept cymbal. So, and we're already working into 2023 for new product. But we have to be ahead of the curve a little bit to be ready. So we've got a lot of ideas. We've got our R&D team, if you will. There's 8 of us I believe, on it. Plus, anyone in the factory that has ideas, we're more than willing to listen.
What a cool place to work, because the creativity is at such a high level. You've got teams, you're always working on something. I want to try to go back and recapture a question here, something about Terry Bozzio. There's a story about him hammering or doing something to his own cymbals. Did that not work out at all, or something that just sounded terrible, it says?
Well, Terry Bozzio is one of a kind. Anyone that knows Terry Bozzio. He's like
amazing.
a one-man orchestra.
Yeah,
back, I believe it was 96. I'm not 100% sure on the year, but we created a series called Radia, and they were made much different than any other cymbal. He came to us with a drawing on a piece of paper, and instead of lathing a cymbal on a lathe, he wanted to be etched from the edge to the center.
Oh.
So the only way we could do that was by hand. We took the carbide lathing knives, and we would put a ring on the outside and a small cup bolted in the middle, and we would etch that tin oxide off by hand. And we spent a solid week creating this he plays 50 cymbals on his kit at once. So basically shut the factory down for a week to replicate. We made 20 of each of those, so there's 1,000 cymbals. And then we had to etch them all by hand. And I remember it well because he was here with his tech, Wayne Wilbur, and he brought his full giant drum set. And we had cymbals playing all over the vault everywhere, and we were matching them up. And we would scratch them by hand, but it was a slow process. It took about an hour to do one cymbal.
Oh, yeah.
And we had a long weekend coming up. I don't know if it was Easter, and we were Friday, and we were getting pretty tired. And he said, we're so close, I'm going to stay another week. So we spent the whole weekend, all of us in here, scratching those, and then all the next week. And we had a full set. And I remember he set up in the vault and had all the employees come in, and he played for everybody in the vault. And that was a series for a number of years, the Radia. And we still
I remember that.
A couple times in the bells. And occasionally somebody will request like a 20 or some of the larger sizes. But going back to that, we weren't afraid to take that on. That probably wasn't the smartest market-wise, but we were very innovative, and we would try anything. We did a lot of things like that. And, you learn things while you're doing that also. So it helps in the creativity.
Yeah, I mean, it helps with the big picture. I remember the first clinic I went to of Terry's. Yeah. I didn't know whether to, go home and throw my drumsticks away or cry. He's so amazing. I mean, when he can set patterns with his feet, and then change his hands to his feet. And I mean, he is brilliant. He is just absolutely amazing. Now I got to go back to another question. We got a couple of them. One is, why the new logo? It's not cute.
Yeah. Well, it depends on your perspective. I mean, we rebranded and we changed a lot of things, and without changing the logo, people wouldn't recognize that. And thinking way back, Bob Zildjian, he talked about changing the logo 20 years ago.
Huh.
I mean, over time, we just thought it was time to get a little bit more modern look. Now, some drummers hate it, some love it, but, it is what it is. And we still love the old logo too, but the new logo is here to stay, so...
And you don't really use the old logo anymore, am I correct? It's the new one on everything.
No, there's still a few symbols around. I'm sure stores have lots of them with the old logo still. And typically everything is a new logo now. I mean, even our software, and some things we're incorporating now is the rings on a cymbal. Like part of that Sabian logo is just the rings. And this So that's something that signifies, it's kind of like our Nike swoosh.
Yeah, that's very cool.
It doesn't have to say Sabian. It can just show the rings and people recognize that.
Yeah.
So that may be something we incorporate more and more.
No, I like that. I like because that is, it's like the Nike swoosh, like you said, you see that and say Sabian, and that's all part of branding. Somebody just said kind of resembles the old logo in a bit, which it does.
Well, it has the rings,
it's got those rings, So, and I think again the innovation, and somebody just said love the idea, but you've been with Sabian almost your whole working life, and you mentioned that there are people at the factory been there 20 years, 30 years. I don't know. Is somebody been there 40 years since the beginning?
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm in my 42nd year.
Okay.
I'm not the longest serving. Louis Furrow, who just he said he retired, but he comes every day, so I don't think.
I like it.
But he's in his 47th year.
Wow.
So, and then Nort, you remember Nort? Nort was here 45. Blair Davison just recently retired. He was here, I believe, 43.
Amazing.
And we've got a lot. Well, Peter Stairs is 40 years, you know, Peter. And there's a lot of employees that are 20, 30 plus years. Charlie Brown, he's here almost 40. He does a lot of our hand hammering. Like, there's a lot of long-term employees. Now, that I don't think that's common today. People
It isn't.
a lot more, but we used to joke about it here, said if you're here for 5 years, you're a lifer after that. Now, that isn't always the case, but.
Somebody just made a comment and said, what a legend. And here's another one that just popped up. Sabian is the best, which I would agree. You made a comment when we were talking about this before that obviously you just said it. That's not very common, but yet maybe it could be. You said something to me that is super important, and that is when you find something you like and you enjoy, stick with it. I often, when I do speak at school assemblies, and I'll tell students, I say, hey, don't try to find a job. Do what you're passionate about, you know. And some people have said, then you'll never work a day in your life. But when you're passionate about, I mean, that's why. I'm sure that's one of many reasons why all of you, you know, many of you have been there so many years. And I know I appreciate when I see you in person, and it's like you take me on this tour at the NAMM show, and here's this one new one and this one, and you'll like this one. And I mean, it's you sense that enthusiasm, that passion in you. And I know some of the others that I know at the factory.
Yeah, and we say it to ourselves jokingly, but they pay us to do this. Like,
I love it.
But I mean, there's a lot of hard work that goes on here too. But
sure,
you know, and we're kind of lucky in a way doing what we do, Randy and I. But we're creative, and we have access to everything on the factory floor, plus in here. So we're kind of free to do what we like. But at the end of the day, we have to be creative and create instruments that are new and unique, and you know, make the company profitable too.
See, what a cool place to be, you know, in your career. And like you said, they pay us to do this. I mean, that's amazing. You know, you've got this very cool purpose that really affects a lot of different people, because all of us that are part of the Sabian family, you're enabling us to do what we do and provide not just a quality product, but something that, you know, that changes lives. I mean, we're big about that with Utalk, and, you know, be the change, go out and change the world. And Sabian is changing the world through the product that you're producing. I missed a couple of questions. I'm going to jump and grab this one. It says, are you able to ship around the world? I believe so.
Oh, yeah. We shipped over 80 countries around the world. And, you know, international shipping is a big part of our business. I mean, we certainly deal with the big, you know, North American dealers, the Guitar Centers, the Sweetwaters.
Sure.
Canada, Long and McQuaid is a big distributor. There's a lot of small independents also. But no, we ship all over the world. And there's some challenges to that recently with, you know, containers and all that. I mean, things are kind of backlogged with COVID, and it's still catching up. But no, we're very active internationally, you know, and there's a lot of competition too internationally. But no, we do well there.
Maybe we need a new shirt that says "Change the World, Play Sabian."
Yeah. Yeah.
Or just Sabian changing the world.
Yeah. Steve, thing that's interesting too, and all drummers they want to be unique and different.
Yeah.
Not every drummer typically has a unique setup, and they want to be different than everybody else. They want to sound different. They want to look different. So that's why we create thousands of different sounds and different models, is because everybody wants their sound. And that's our tagline, kind of play your way, kind of, you know, we want to create instruments where everybody can be unique, have a unique sound, a unique playing style. And we want everyone to enjoy the product and sound great out there.
Well, you guys are the best, definitely. You know, I'm always bragging about being part of the Sabian family and trying to convince other drummers, you know, this is what you need to move to. And of course, my students, you know, and that's one thing another thing I appreciate about Sabian is there is a line for younger players that's a bit less expensive, yet the quality is there. That quality of those other cymbals is still every bit as good as the top of the line, which is great that you guys have done that. And of course, I love that with my students because it's like, this is the symbol you need to get, in my opinion, but I think that's what it is. Mark, once again, Sabian website is Sabian, Sabian.com. We'll put it in the notes of the show. And social media, how do we follow Sabian on social media?
Well, we have a Facebook page, a YouTube page, Instagram. Randy, you can even comment on that. You probably know that better than I do.
Yeah, there's Sabian Cymbals is the YouTube.
Yeah.
I think it's Sabian Official on Instagram. And it's just Sabian on Facebook.
Yeah.
I'll also, if you guys are curious about Area 51, I see in the comments a lot of people are really jazzed over this. I invite you to go to our YouTube channel and check out a series that Mark and I started called Raid the Vault.
Yeah.
Nice.
Cool. Yeah.
Nice. We will try to make sure all these notes are in the notes for the show. I appreciate you guys. I guess we're going to have to bring our conversation to an end at this point, but we are going to have to do this again.
There's a lot of opportunity. Maybe sometime we could set it up so we could actually walk through the factory and actually see some of the manufacturing. But we'd love to do this again at some point. Yeah,
no, definitely. And this is kind of a spoiler alert, but Utalk is launching a TV show. And that might be a good thing to do, where we could set it up or maybe that I can make a trip up and we can walk through together, whatever. But definitely, we definitely got to do that. And we'll do this again. I appreciate you guys so much. And it's great to see you. And Randy, thanks for your help. And greet all my other friends at Sabian. And we'll be in touch.
Okay, Steve, thank you very much.
This is Utalk Radio.